behind. It shows growth for both Sanders and Warren and a significant drop for the former vice president, down 13 points since June in the same poll. But overnight, some good news for the Biden camp. A new Morning Consult poll with a much smaller margin of error of only 1% put Biden ahead at 33%, with Sanders at 20%, Warren at 15%. Joining me now to talk about all of this is Kate Bedingfield, Joe Biden's deputy campaign manager and communications director. Thanks, Kate. It's good to see you.
Nice to see you, too.
Well, one thing that occurs is if you put out an ad last week saying he's ahead in all the polls, advertising his lead in the polls, then once even one potentially outlying poll goes down, it's going to get attention. Don't you need to, have different rationales for the campaign?
Well, first of all, the polls show that he is still in the lead. I mean, you mentioned the Morning Consult poll out this morning showing him at 33%, which is actually in line with the Real Clear Politics average, which is about 28%. So if we're talking polls, he is leading in the polls, to be clear. But, I think actually the most important thing is the reason why, which is, not that voters know his name, but that they know him. They know his character, they know his values, and they know that he's offering plans and ideas that capitalize on the urgency of now. He's putting forward ways to build on a progressive agenda that he's fought for and that he and President Obama fought for in the White House. So, he's actually the only candidate in this field who has secured the deciding vote on a progressive overhaul of our healthcare system. Joe Biden did that, and voters know that about him. And they know, we actually put out a new ad today in Iowa talking about healthcare because healthcare is such a defining issue in this campaign. And it's something that Joe Biden feels really personally. He's had experience, he's lived the experience that so many Americans in this country have lived with, the uncertainty and the fear of a health crisis. And so healthcare is personal to him, but Obamacare is also personal to him. And so that's an argument that you see him make every day on the campaign trail, and that's part of why voters are responding the way they are to him.
Now, one of the other factors in that Monmouth poll, which admittedly may well be an outlier, and now it appears that it is that he was tied with Andrew Yang in terms of support of younger people. So the internals, he has consistently had a lot of support among older voters, but not among younger people. What can he do to appeal more to younger voters?
Well, first of all, let's be clear, the sample size of that poll was 300 people. So as compared to, for example, the Morning Consult poll this morning, which is a sample size, of 5,000 people. So let's not put too much faith in one outlying poll that is way outside of where all of the other polling is coming back. But all that being said, you actually, I think, are raising a really interesting point, Andrea, about where candidates' support comes from. And I think one important thing about Joe Biden is he has tremendous support in the African-American community. And I think, when we talk about electability versus enthusiasm, which is a favorite narrative of the press these days, enthusiasm is not just about who excites progressive whites. It's also about who can build a diverse coalition. And no Democrat is going to win the nomination for president of the United States without African-American support, and nor should they. And Joe Biden has a tremendous respect and relationship with the African-American community that I think is really important because other leading candidates in this race have yet to prove that relationship. So I think as we're talking about building a coalition, that's a really important point about voter enthusiasm and about enthusiasm in the Democratic electorate.
Now, at the same time, I talked to a lot of people, Democrats, elected Democrats, and